The Galactic Council had been at peace for centuries. A coalition of various alien species, they worked together to maintain order across the galaxy. But all that changed the moment the humans arrived. A mysterious fleet, unlike anything the galaxy had seen, appeared at the edge of the star system of Trion 6. The fleet was small, only a few dozen ships, but their reputation had already begun to spread. The council members, made up of beings from various planets, were uneasy. They had heard the rumors, but seeing it in person was different. These humans, a race from a harsh and dangerous world known as Earth, were something new. They were called Deathworlders for a reason. Their home planet was filled with deadly creatures and extreme environments that no other species could survive. On Earth, the humans had learned how to adapt to everything that tried to kill them. From harsh winters to dangerous predators, they had fought, survived, and conquered. The council was nervous. They weren't sure if the humans were a threat or just a curious, strange species. There was no way to know for sure. Their scouts had been unable to make contact, and the humans weren't answering messages. They had simply arrived, docking their ships at the edge of the system without warning. As the Galactic Council met in their grand chamber, a sense of tension filled the air. Representatives from each species nervously glanced at one another. The Trion 6 system was peaceful. Its colonies were thriving. But now, with the arrival of the humans, nothing felt certain anymore. "Their fleet is primitive," said the delegate from the Xarian Empire. "We've seen their ships. They are no match for our advanced technology. We shouldn't underestimate them," replied the Ilori representative. "Their record shows a remarkable ability to adapt and overcome." The debate raged on. Some argued the humans were just another species trying to claim their place in the galaxy. Others feared they were a dangerous power, one that could disrupt everything the council had built. Then, a communication came through. It was a simple message, but it sent a chill down the spines of the council members. "We are here. We have come for what is ours." The message was blunt, direct, and filled with a sense of cold, hard purpose. The humans did not ask for permission. They did not offer friendship or alliance. They made a claim. The council was left speechless. They knew that on Earth, survival was a constant struggle. The humans did not shy away from conflict. But what did this mean for the galaxy? Was it an empty threat, or the beginning of something far worse? As the council members discussed, one thing was clear: the humans had arrived. And whatever their intentions, it was certain that nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again. The Galactic Council members were not easily shaken. They had dealt with numerous threats and conflicts over the centuries, but the arrival of the humans left them uncertain in a way they had never experienced before. As they sat in their grand chambers, the leaders from the different species agreed on one thing. They needed to learn more about these strange Deathworlders before they made any decisions. To better understand the humans, the council decided to look into their history. They activated a special device, a large holographic projector, that would display the story of Earth. It was a way for the council to peer into the past of this mysterious species, hoping to find answers. The screen flickered, and a timeline began to unfold. The first image showed a planet covered in violent storms, vast deserts, and dense jungles. The council gasped. Earth looked like a place no living being should ever call home. But then, the hologram zoomed in, showing the earliest humans. They were small, weak creatures, living in tribes and constantly fighting for survival. They faced dangerous animals, harsh climates, and diseases. But despite all this, they survived. "Look at them," said the delegate from the Eurasian Confederation, shaking their head. "How did they survive such a world?" The hologram showed the humans learning, evolving, and developing tools. They hunted in packs, used fire, and made shelter from their environment. They fought off giant predators, like saber-toothed cats, and learned to grow crops. The most incredible thing was that, even in the face of danger, humans adapted. They didn't just survive. They thrived. They were small and fragile compared to many other species in the galaxy, yet they never gave up. As the hologram continued, it showed more milestones. The humans discovered fire, built cities, and created great civilizations. They fought wars, not just against the wild beasts of their planet, but against each other. Yet with each conflict, they became stronger, smarter, and more united. Eventually, they reached the stars. They built spaceships, explored the cosmos, and even made contact with other alien species. But in every encounter, one thing remained clear: humans never backed down. The council was quiet. Some species could not believe what they were seeing. How could a species that had once been so weak and fragile become so powerful? How could a planet so hostile to life give birth to such unstoppable creatures? As the hologram showed the humans' more recent history, the picture became even more surprising. The humans had not only survived in a hostile universe, but they had also thrived in ways no other species had. They had developed technology that far outstripped many of the galaxy's older civilizations. But what shocked the council the most was a simple truth: humans had learned to think differently. They saw challenges as opportunities, danger as a chance to grow stronger. In every battle, every war, they adapted faster than any of their enemies. They learned from their mistakes, and they learned quickly. The hologram ended, leaving the council in stunned silence. The stories they had seen were incredible. The humans were not just survivors. They were warriors, thinkers, and builders. They had faced impossible odds and come out stronger every time. The council knew one thing for sure: the Deathworlders were not to be underestimated. They were a force to be reckoned with, and the galaxy would have to prepare for whatever came next. The Galactic Council was still reeling from the images of Earth's history. The humans' rise from a violent, chaotic planet to one of the galaxy's most adaptable species was something none of them had expected. However, the true test was yet to come. The humans had made their first move by sending a small fleet to the peaceful planet of Tenebris. Known for its abundant resources and strategic location, Tenebris was a prize worth fighting for. The Council, although shaken by the humans' history, was convinced that they could handle this new challenge. But they were wrong. The fleet that arrived in Tenebris was nothing like the Council had imagined. The human ships were old by galactic standards, but their ingenuity made them anything but weak. Instead of using traditional space combat tactics, they employed strange, unpredictable strategies that confused the Tenebris defenders. They didn't attack head-on. Instead, they began using the environment to their advantage, turning the planet's natural features into weapons. The Tenebris Planetary Defense Force, made up of elite soldiers from several species, were well prepared. They had advanced weapons, shields, and the best technology the Council had to offer. They expected a conventional invasion, one they could easily repel with their superior firepower. But the humans had no intention of playing by anyone's rules. The first sign of trouble came when the human ships entered Tenebris's orbit. Instead of focusing on the planet's defenses, they began launching small, stealthy probes. These probes seemed harmless at first, but they quickly began disrupting communication lines and jamming the planetary defense network. The defenders were unable to coordinate, and their most advanced systems became useless. Then the humans launched their real attack. Instead of direct assaults, they used the terrain itself. They had studied Tenebris's ecosystem and figured out how to use its wildlife and extreme weather to their advantage. They set off explosions that triggered landslides, trapping enemy forces in valleys. They released toxic gases into the atmosphere, forcing defenders to retreat into underground bunkers. The humans even manipulated the planet's weather, causing sudden storms to confuse and disorient the enemy. The Tenebris defenders fought back fiercely, but they were no match for the humans' unconventional tactics. They tried to regroup, only to find that the humans had already infiltrated their strongholds, sabotaging key supply lines and setting traps. The humans moved quickly and silently, always staying one step ahead. The battle didn't last long. Within a few days, the defenders were in full retreat, and the humans had claimed control of key positions on the planet. It was a shocking victory for the Deathworlders, and it left the Galactic Council in disbelief. They had expected the humans to use force. They had expected them to launch a full-scale invasion with overwhelming numbers. But the humans had shown them something they hadn't prepared for: the ability to think outside the box, to turn the environment into a weapon, and to fight with a level of cunning no one could predict. The council convened immediately after the battle. Leaders from all over the galaxy were in a state of shock. No one could believe what had just happened. The humans had not only won, they had done so in a way that was completely unexpected. Their tactics had left the defenders in disarray, and no one knew how to respond. The tenebrous battle was just the beginning. The humans had shown the galaxy that they were not a species to be underestimated. They were something new, something dangerous, and they had just proven it to the entire galaxy. The council had one question on their minds: what would the humans do next? The news of Tenebrous' fall spread like wildfire across the galaxy. For days, the council chambers were filled with heated debates, frantic messages, and emergency meetings. The Deathworlders had proven themselves to be more than just a nuisance. They had demonstrated a level of cunning and unpredictability that no one had seen before. The Galactic Council, made up of representatives from various peaceful species, had to face a harsh truth: they had underestimated the humans. In the Grand Council chamber, tension hung thick in the air. Representatives from different species sat in uncomfortable silence, staring at holograms of the destruction on Tenebrous. Some species had already called for immediate action against the humans. The Xarians, known for their strong military power, were the loudest, demanding a swift, coordinated attack to wipe out the humans before they could strike again. But others, like the Ilori, had a different opinion. The Ilori were diplomats by nature. They believed in peaceful negotiation and cooperation. Their representative, an elder named Ulvan, stood up slowly, her voice calm but filled with concern. "We cannot let fear cloud our judgment," she said. "We must understand what the humans want. We must speak with them before we take any further action. If we rush into conflict, it may lead to something worse." A chorus of voices rose up in disagreement, but Ulvan held up a hand to silence them. "We must not forget their history," she continued. "The humans have always fought for survival, and they have always adapted. They have no intention of conquering the galaxy. They are simply making their claim. Perhaps we can find a way to coexist." But the loudest voice in the room was that of Orlok, a warrior of the Xarian Empire. His species had a long history of military dominance, and he was not one to back down from a fight. "You're wrong, Ulvan," Orlok thundered. "These humans have no respect for us or our ways. They are nothing but barbarians. They think they can defeat us by using the very environment against us. Their tactics are brutal and unpredictable. We need to wipe them out before they spread their chaos across the galaxy." The room fell silent as Orlok's words echoed in the chamber. The members of the council knew he had a point. The humans had proven they could fight in ways that no one else could. Their ability to use their surroundings as weapons was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. The tenebrous battle had left the defenders confused, disoriented, and ultimately defeated. But there was more at stake than just military power. There was something else, something that the council couldn't ignore. The humans had not just defeated their enemies. They had done so with a strange, almost reckless confidence. They didn't seem afraid of losing. They seemed to thrive in uncertainty, and that terrified the council. In a rare moment of quiet, the oldest member of the council, the Vilka, a species known for their wisdom, spoke. "We have witnessed a shift in the galaxy," he said softly. "The humans have shown us that survival is not just about strength. It is about adaptation. They are not like any species we have ever known." The room fell silent again. The realization hit the council members hard. They had always thought of the galaxy's balance as something that could be maintained through alliances, treaties, and military power. But now they saw something different. A species that didn't play by the rules. A species that could survive anything, and maybe even thrive in a galaxy full of chaos. The Council was at a crossroads. Some species wanted to wipe out the humans, while others argued for negotiation. But no one knew what the humans truly wanted. They had not made any demands, except to claim what was theirs. The Council, once so united, now found itself torn apart by fear and uncertainty. In the end, it wasn't the debate that ended the meeting. It was the tears. The leaders of the galaxy, for the first time in centuries, realized they were not in control anymore. The Deathworlders had changed everything, and there was no going back. The galaxy would never be the same, and no one knew what would come next. After the chaos of the Tenebrous battle and the heated debates within the Galactic Council, there was an undeniable sense of fear across the galaxy. The humans, Deathworlders, had shown a terrifying level of strength and ingenuity. They had proven that they were not to be taken lightly. Yet, despite the fear they inspired, some council members still held out hope that there could be a way to avoid full-scale war. Perhaps diplomacy, however unlikely, was still possible. In the weeks that followed, the Galactic Council sent a message to Earth, offering a chance for peaceful negotiation. They called for an official meeting on a neutral world, hoping that a diplomatic approach could bring understanding between the humans and the various alien species. The Council made it clear that they were willing to listen, but it was impossible to deny the tension that ran through every communication. To everyone's surprise, the humans agreed to the meeting. But, as with everything they did, it was on their own terms. The Council had expected to meet in a grand, well-protected space station or an advanced diplomatic hall. Instead, the humans chose Earth as the location for the meeting. The message they sent was clear. They would not be confined to the Council's sterile, controlled environment. They would speak on their own ground, where they held the power. When the Council representatives arrived on Earth, they were immediately struck by the planet's raw, untamed nature. Earth was a planet full of extremes. Wild storms, dense forests, vast deserts, and unpredictable wildlife. The weather alone seemed hostile to the visitors. As they stepped off their ships and onto the planet's surface, they were met with the harsh conditions that made Earth both beautiful and dangerous. The air was thick, the ground uneven, and the very atmosphere seemed to push back against them. The humans were waiting for them, not in an elaborate hall, but in a simple clearing surrounded by dense trees. There were no decorations, no guards, no safety nets. Just humans standing confidently in the middle of their world. The Council representatives felt a sudden sense of unease. They were not used to this kind of environment. The humans, however, seemed perfectly at home. They didn't care about comfort or luxury. They cared about survival, and it was clear that they had mastered their world in ways the Council could never understand. The human representative, a man named Captain Rook, stepped forward. His presence was commanding, though there was nothing flashy about him. He wore simple clothing, clearly made for function, not style. His eyes scanned the alien diplomats, but there was no fear in his gaze, only cold calculation. He was not there to negotiate for peace. He was there to make one thing clear: the humans had arrived, and they would not be ignored. "We're not here to beg for peace," Captain Rook said, his voice steady and firm. "We're here to make sure you understand this. We won't be controlled. We won't play by your rules. If you want peace, it'll be on our terms. But if you want war, we'll bring that too." The Council representatives were shocked by the directness of his words. They had expected negotiation, compromise, maybe even some signs of weakness. But there was none. The humans were not afraid. They weren't even asking for anything specific. At least, not yet. It was clear, however, that they had one demand: respect. As the meeting continued, the Council members tried to appeal to the humans' sense of diplomacy, urging them to join the galactic community and share in the benefits of peace. But Captain Rook remained unmoved. He explained, once again, that the humans were not like other species. They were not looking for alliances or protection. They simply wanted their place in the galaxy, without interference. "We don't need you," Rook said with finality. "We can survive on our own. But if you stand in our way, you'll regret it." After the meeting on Earth, the Galactic Council found itself at a crossroads. The humans had made their position clear. They were not seeking peace or cooperation, at least not in the way the Council understood it. They did not care for the galaxy's rules, and they certainly didn't care for diplomacy in the traditional sense. To the humans, survival and strength were the only measures of respect. News of the meeting spread across the galaxy, and many species began to fear the humans more than ever. Their ability to survive the most dangerous environments, to adapt and overcome any obstacle, had already been proven. Now, the Council realized that they were dealing with a species that could thrive anywhere, no matter how harsh the conditions. It didn't take long for the humans to make their next move. With their fleet still stationed near the outskirts of Council space, they issued a challenge. It was simple, but it sent shockwaves through the galaxy. They called it the test of survival. The humans wanted to prove a point, that they could conquer any environment, no matter how hostile. The test of survival would take place on a planet called Scarnath-9, a world that had long been considered a death trap by galactic standards. Its surface was covered in boiling seas, earthquakes were constant, and toxic gases leaked from deep cracks in the ground. It was a planet where no other species had ever survived for more than a few days. The Council had long ago decided it was uninhabitable. But the humans were not deterred. They announced that they would land on Scarnath-9 with a small team of volunteers to survive for a month. If they succeeded, they would prove once and for all that they were a species unlike any other, and that they should be treated as such. The challenge was broadcasted across the galaxy, and representatives from the Council watched with both disbelief and fascination. Many believed the humans would fail. How could they survive such an impossible world? Others, however, saw the challenge as a dangerous gamble. If the humans succeeded, it would send a message that no one could ignore. On Scarnath-9, the humans made their landing. Their ships touched down on the rocky surface with ease, and within hours, the small team had begun to set up camp. The conditions were brutal. The air was thick with poisonous gases, and the ground constantly trembled beneath their feet. Yet, despite the danger, the humans were calm, efficient, and methodical. Captain Rook, who had been part of the Earth delegation, was once again in charge. He led his team with the same confidence and grit that had won them the first meeting with the Council. They built shelters quickly, using materials from their ships and the environment. They collected water from the rare, unstable lakes that dotted the planet's surface, and they began to study the local fauna and flora, finding ways to survive on what little the planet had to offer. The Council watched from a safe distance, studying every move the humans made. Days passed, then weeks. The humans endured constant tremors, poisonous rains, and extreme heat, but they adapted. They learned how to shield themselves from the toxic gases, found new ways to grow food in the harsh soil, and even built devices to harness the planet's unstable energy sources. When the month finally came to an end, the humans emerged from the planet's surface, battered but victorious. They had survived the impossible. They had conquered a planet that no other species dared to touch. The Council was left in stunned silence. They had hoped that the humans would fail, that the challenge would show their weakness. Instead, it had only proved what the humans had been saying all along. They were survivors, no matter what. The test of survival was not just about proving the humans' ability to endure. It was about sending a message. The galaxy was full of dangerous worlds, full of threats, and the humans had shown that they could survive them all. The galaxy had to accept that humanity was not just a player. It was a force of nature, something that could not be ignored. The Council was shaken. They had no choice but to acknowledge the human strength. They had passed the ultimate test. But now they faced an even harder question. What would the galaxy's future look like with the Deathworlders among them? The humans had made their mark on the galaxy in a way that no one could deny. They had survived the impossible, proven themselves in ways that no other species could match, and now they had the attention of every civilization in Council space. But while the Council debated what to do about the growing influence of the Deathworlders, something far more troubling was happening. The ripple effect of their survival had begun to reach the farthest corners of the galaxy. The human success on Scarnath 9 had inspired more than just fear. It had sparked a wave of excitement among the galaxy's forgotten species, those who had been left behind by the Galactic Council. These were the outcasts, those who had been oppressed, ignored, or even enslaved by the more powerful civilizations. To them, the humans represented hope. The humans had shown that survival was possible in the harshest conditions, that strength could come from the most unlikely sources. And now, the outcasts wanted a piece of that power. Across several worlds, small but growing factions began to form. These groups were made up of different species, some from planets that had suffered under the control of the Council, others from those who had been abandoned in the wake of the galactic peace. These factions shared one thing in common. They were tired of being overlooked, tired of being controlled. They saw the humans as a symbol of resistance, and they wanted to learn from them, to fight alongside them. As these groups began to grow, the Galactic Council found itself facing a new crisis. The humans, who had once been seen as a dangerous but isolated species, were now inspiring a rebellion. The outcasts were banding together, learning from the humans' tactics and organizing themselves into a powerful, loose alliance. They had no central leadership, no formal structure, but they were united by a single cause: freedom. The humans, however, were not directly involved in the uprising. At least, not in the way the Council feared. They had not called for rebellion, nor had they given any formal backing to the outcasts. Yet it was clear that their influence had spread far beyond their own borders. The humans had shown the galaxy what it meant to fight for survival, and now, the outcasts were taking that lesson to heart. Captain Rook, still leading his team, watched the growing movements with a mix of curiosity and caution. The humans had not sought to be liberators or leaders of a revolution, but as they had always done, they had simply survived, and in doing so, they had unknowingly sparked something much larger. The humans had shown that it was possible to fight back, to challenge the established order. In the shadows of the Council, a few members began to whisper of a growing threat. The Orician Empire, a power that had long dominated Council politics, began to make moves, trying to quell the rebellion before it spread further. They sent troops to several key planets, attempting to crush the outcast movements. But it was clear that the situation was quickly spiraling out of control. The outcasts were not simply rebelling against their oppressors, they were rebelling against the entire system that had kept them down. And they were not doing it alone. As the factions grew, they became a force in their own right, trained by the humans' tactics and fueled by their newfound hope. They began to strike against Council forces, attacking strategic locations, sabotaging supply lines, and demonstrating their own strength. The Galactic Council, still unsure of how to handle the humans, now faced an even greater dilemma. The Deathworlders had not only challenged their power directly, but they had inspired a revolution among the galaxy's most oppressed species. The outcasts were no longer just a threat to be contained. They were a force that could change the very structure of galactic politics. The humans had unknowingly become the catalyst for something much larger than themselves. And now, the galaxy would have to reckon with the consequences. Would the Council maintain its hold over the galaxy, or would this uprising, inspired by the humans' very survival, lead to the downfall of the old order? The future of the galaxy was now in question, and it all began with the actions of one species that had simply refused to give up. The galaxy was changing. The human influence had grown beyond what anyone could have predicted, and the outcast movements fueled by their example were spreading faster than the Galactic Council could contain. Planets that had long been under the control of the most powerful empires were beginning to stir. The oppressed species, those who had lived in the shadows of the galaxy, were now rising up. They had found a new strength, a new purpose, one that the Council could not ignore. The Council had always prided itself on maintaining peace and order. It had been a system where the strongest powers held sway, and the smaller species had no choice but to comply. But that old system was now crumbling. The outcasts, united by the example of the humans' resilience, had started to reclaim worlds once thought lost. They fought with an unrelenting passion, using the very same tactics that the humans had employed to win Tenebris and survive Scarnath 9. They had learned to adapt, to survive in the most hostile conditions. The Council's once immovable empires were now on the defensive. Captain Rook, though not directly leading the rebellion, watched from the sidelines as the outcasts grew stronger. He had known that humanity's example would inspire change, but he hadn't expected it to spread so quickly. There were no formal alliances, no organized armies, just groups of fighters who had learned to fight in ways the Council never thought possible. They attacked with precision and purpose, using guerrilla tactics, the very methods that the humans had perfected. As the rebellion spread, the Council became more desperate. The Arisian Empire, once the dominant force in galactic politics, took the brunt of the fighting. Their armies, trained in conventional warfare, were struggling to contain the uprising. The rebellion wasn't like any war they had fought before. The outcasts didn't care about traditional battles or space fleets. They cared only about freedom, and they were willing to fight for it. Desperate, the Council began to send reinforcements to key worlds. They sent fleets, troops, and advanced technology, hoping to crush the rebellion before it could spread further. But it was clear that their power was no longer absolute. The outcasts were not fighting for a cause. They were fighting for survival, and that was something the Council couldn't understand. The more the Council pushed back, the more the outcasts fought back harder. They were driven by a belief that had been taught to them by the humans. Survival meant adapting, even when the odds were stacked against you. The turning point came when the rebellion reached the heart of Council space. The outcasts, now organized into a loose but effective alliance, attacked key Council strongholds. They targeted supply lines, critical infrastructure, and government centers. The Council's forces, stretched thin from their constant battles, struggled to defend against the tide of change. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy's balance of power was in flux. The Council was no longer in control. The once unified galactic government was divided, fractured by the uprising that had been sparked by the human survival. The rebellion had spread beyond the outcasts. It had become a movement for freedom, a call for change that resonated across the stars. The old order, held together by fear and the illusion of peace, was crumbling. And as the chaos spread, the humans stood at the center of it all. They hadn't intended to start a revolution. They hadn't asked for it, but they had shown the galaxy what it meant to fight for survival, and that lesson had ignited something much larger. The final collapse of the old order was swift and violent. The Galactic Council, which had once held the power to shape the galaxy, now found itself fractured and weak. The rebellion, fueled by the outcasts and inspired by the humans, had brought the galaxy to its knees. Entire systems once under Council control had fallen, and more were on the brink of rebellion. The Arisian Empire, once the heart of Council strength, was now crumbling under the pressure of constant uprisings and guerrilla warfare. The humans, having never actively led the rebellion, had now become symbols of the new reality. They were not conquerors or rulers. They were survivors. And their message was clear. The galaxy needed to change. The old way of maintaining peace through control, force, and fear was no longer sustainable. The humans had shown that true strength lay not in domination, but in the ability to adapt and survive in the harshest of conditions. As the final battles of the rebellion raged across the galaxy, the Galactic Council had no choice but to face the inevitable. The Council chambers, once filled with the voices of the galaxy's most powerful species, were now silent. Leaders of various factions, weakened by years of constant fighting, now realized that they could not go back to the old ways. The galaxy had changed, and so must they. In a last-ditch effort, a delegation from the Galactic Council reached out to Captain Rook. The humans, as much as they had been the cause of this revolution, were now the key to peace. They were not asking for domination. They were not asking for control. What the humans wanted was a new system, a system based on respect, survival, and mutual cooperation, not oppression. Rook and his team did not see themselves as saviors, but as a necessary force to help guide the galaxy into this new age. At a neutral location, far from the centers of power, Rook met with the representatives from the council. The atmosphere was tense, but there was also a sense of reluctant hope. The representatives knew that they were at the crossroads of history. The decision they made now would shape the future of the galaxy. Rook stood firm, as always. He wasn't there to negotiate for anything for himself. His people had already proven their strength. What the humans wanted was simple: a galaxy that could exist in balance, where strength was no longer about subjugation, but about the ability to survive together. We've shown you what we can do. Now, we're offering you a choice. We can either keep fighting for the old system, where only the strong survive by crushing the weak, or we can work together and build something new. The council representatives were silent, their eyes locked on Rook. They knew that the galaxy they had once controlled was slipping away. If they wanted to avoid further destruction, they would have to accept the humans' terms. The decision was made. The Galactic Council, now shattered and reformed, agreed to a new path. The new order would not be led by a single power or empire, but by cooperation. The humans were not the rulers, but they had helped lead the charge for change. With this agreement, the galaxy would begin the slow process of rebuilding. The humans, having ignited a revolution and changed the face of the galaxy, returned to Earth. Their people didn't seek fame or power. They sought peace and survival. The galaxy would never be the same. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: the humans had shown the galaxy what it truly meant to survive, and in doing so, they had created a new dawn. The era of fear and domination had passed, and a new age of cooperation and strength had begun. The galaxy, for the first time in a long while, had hope.